Hey, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to do something different. I'm starting a new series. Maybe let's just say, how did you do it? So essentially what I want to do is I want to bring people who have built incredible things with AI and have them show us how did they do it. I'm going to bring on Megan. So Megan and I, just a quick little intro here. So Megan and I work together. We're business partners on our consulting side for AI, but she also works as a project manager at EA. Man, she's a psych major, like from arts, and now she's done vibe coding and she's built so many things. So I decided to bring her on just because I feel like if I'm talking vibe coding, I went to school for engineering. I'm going to have a different perspective. But having someone who went to school for like psychology, has no technical background, leveraging the AI coding tools from like prompt to building dashboards and apps, her experience, I think it's going to be super relatable to a lot of people. We're going to talk to her about her learning experiences, how she felt empowered, how she felt stuck, and any recommendations she may have for anyone who wants to pick up vibe coding as a complete beginner without any technical experience. All right, so let's get into it. So Megan, thanks for joining today. Happy to have you here. This is not our normal conversation. Usually it's a Zoom meeting on a Friday, but here we are.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to chat about my experience.
So for a little more context, so Megan and I started talking about vibe coding maybe 2 months ago. So I was building some dashboards for the business and she was asking me like in Slack, how did you do this so quickly? And I was like, hey, I'm just using some vibe coding tools. So like prompt to coding and like building all that stuff. And she was like, can I try it? I was like, absolutely. So somehow we were able to get access to some credits so we can play around a lot more. And then she went nuts. Like I remember you coming to me like in our next Friday call, be like, hey, I just spent 3 days nonstop building so many things. So why don't we start with just showing what you build? Then we're going to backtrack from there, how you get started, how you were feeling when you first getting started, and just kind of like your whole story there. All right, you use Safari. That is weird.
I know. I get a lot of help for that. But for business, I use Chrome. I'm just a huge Apple fan. Huge.
Okay. If Tim Cook's watching, they should probably send you a MacBook.
Please. But yeah, I actually had to go in here and delete a bunch of projects because I was going absolutely nuts, just being like, if I put this like prompt in, what's it going to come out with, So this is, the ones that are actually, they had some good output. The first project that I built was what I call the sufficiency calculator. And I was really excited about this one because I was thinking, how do we get like a really good lead magnet, to be honest? Like what would people be interested in? And I was like, oh my gosh, I constantly have conversations around how to be more efficient. What is the ROI on automation and all these different things. And then I went in here and I was like, oh my gosh, I can start building it. So I built this, and essentially what it does is if you kind of click the role, you outline a task, you put an hour association as well as a wage, and then you go through the steps. Oh yeah, you outline how automatable a task is. Not every task is automated, nor should it be automated. And then you go on. And then I added this in later because I was like, oh, just to say you can save 10 hours is one thing, but to say, hey, you can allocate these 10 hours to something you actually enjoy doing. So I added in this, which is, you can outline some fulfilling tasks that you will enjoy doing in here. And then, define the priority, go here. And then it's going to spew out this incredible dashboard. It's visual. There's like functions in here to do the mathematics. And then, we have the different kind of tabs if you want to look at it at different time frames. And then cool part is you can download it. You can export it to CSV, you can print it, you can email it to yourself, and I'll dive into how I thought this was absolutely mind-blowing. But this is project number 1.
Nice. So this was your first project. And again, just to reiterate, no technical experience, psych major to project management at EA, and this is what you built.
Yeah, and my favorite.
How'd you feel? Like, okay, tell us what'd you feel before that you were going to get started into vibe coding, and then like once you were able to like run this and able to get there, was there like any ways, like things you were feeling before and after? What was that like?
Oh yeah, honestly, I felt really empowered. I think you and I talked a lot about this, like not having a technical background feels so limiting as I'm wanting to enter this very technical field, right? Because being a tech company and all. So it was really empowering to be like, now I have the tools. I don't need to know how to code. I don't need to have this technical skill. So I can just go in here and I can make any idea I have a reality and look at my own different pain points that I'm having either personally or in the business and see if these tools can solve them. And it's just text-based. I put in a prompt and then, things come out of it. And then I just kind of need to know how to prompt the system. I don't need to know how to code. And that was honestly really, really exciting. It was also really fun. I was like, oh my gosh, can I actually enjoy doing this? Is this something that is like a new hobby of mine, which I never would have thought, but incredibly empowering. And it was so fun. I was going to say, it's also very stressful because when you run into issues, just like anything, you're like,
Did you contemplate switching your careers into software engineering after this? I was like, oh, I can build stuff now.
Oh, 100%. I was like, project management, who? No.
By the way, just want to mention here, this conversation is not supposed to hype up vibe coding. We're going to talk about all the things that she felt like, we talked about this before, before the call, before the recording, that you felt stuck. Like there were a lot of limitations you were hitting as well. So we're going to get into that as we progress through the story. So just want to mention that this is not supposed to be hyping the vibe coding sort of video. Want to keep it real, want to keep it raw. Okay. I want to know, when you logged into the tool to do the vibe coding here, you had no idea. I didn't really talk to you about what to prompt or anything. How did you approach your first prompt? What was that like? Maybe you can, if you feel comfortable, scroll all the way to the top of the chat and show us, if you want to show us, if this was the first kind of the project space that you used. I'm just curious on how you approached writing your first prompt and went about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, is this the very top? I think this might be. Yeah, there we go. As you can see here, this is directly out of ChatGPT. Here's a clear and instructive set of instructions you can put into Lovable. Because what I did is I went straight to ChatGPT and I said, hey, I want to create a Lovable app. This is what I wanted to do. Give me a prompt to put into Lovable. So that's what ChatGPT generated, and I copy and pasted it in and just wanted to see what would happen.
I mean, clearly, we can see here's a clear and structured set of instructions. You copied the whole thing.
I didn't even cut that part out. I was so excited. I was like, I just want to see what the output is. I don't care what the input is. I want the output.
Okay. I mean, I'm a little bummed out you didn't use Prompt Genie, but it's fine. We'll get there. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. So you did the first prompt, and then what happened? Were you able to get what you wanted right away, or what was going on after?
No, it does a really good job at giving you an interface and a UI, which is only step one. So when I did get that, though, I was really excited because it does put a bunch of placeholder stuff in there. So it does a little bit of assumption and a little bit of analysis of, I guess just as AI stuff. Or it says, this is what I assume also would be nice to have in there if you're not super specific. So it did create an interface, it created tabs. It actually put these functionalities in entirely itself. I didn't say that I wanted it to be downloadable. So little things like that, which was really nice to have. And then from there, but also as you can actually see, right after it generated it, it runs into an error. So it generated it, and then you have to fix the error, and then it comes up with a really nice interface. And then you have to go in and fine tune the prompt for everything. But yeah, the fact that even when the interface came up, I was like, whoa, that's really cool. It actually looks really nice. It's really clean.
When the error happens, you're not technical. I'm not sure how much of the errors you can comprehend. So what are you doing there? Just letting the tool fix its own errors, which it's causing by itself? Or are you looking for help online, talking to ChatGPT or someplace else?
I clicked try to fix it. So I did not understand the error, like you said. I don't even bother looking at it. Default fix error. And majority of the time, they actually will. But when it doesn't, and that's part of those pain points we'll discuss later. But yeah, you just click the try to fix it, and it figures it out itself.
Okay, cool. It's useful, I guess. If it's coding for you, might as well fix the errors for you as well. So we see here, you have a long chat, starting from initial prompt to, if you can keep scrolling down here, there's a whole bunch of chat that's going on here. So what's going on here?
A lot of excitement in the beginning. So I was also trying to figure out how the tool works. So it's really easy to just be like, oh, talk to it and it will generate stuff. But what does that actually mean, right? So I'm going in here and I'm trying to figure out, well, what kind of prompts do I need to tell it? Is it just change this button, update this color? So I think the beginning parts is just me figuring out what it can do and actually seeing the changes happen live. And through that, I realized that you can change anything, but also that you have to give it really granular prompts as well. In the beginning, I was clicking on these buttons and nothing would happen. So I had to figure out that they're just placeholders. It's all UI stuff. And you actually have to prompt it and say, when this button is clicked, have this happen. And that's part of that little bit of technical component. But yeah, I think in the beginning, I was just kind of playing around with things. I didn't change the UI a lot because I actually liked it for the most part. But I probably was playing around with the different components of what's involved in the calculations. Okay, is there going to be an option to add different roles? How many tasks? Things like that was probably what I was doing in the beginning here.
Okay. So a lot of the chat is just to basically looking at every single piece of component that's working or not working and giving instructions hey, for this specific thing, this is what we want to do. This is how you should do it. And it's trying to go do its thing every single time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was looking at each step and Even like things like this dashboard wasn't here. So eventually when I hit to the point where I was like, well, it might be nice though to reference what you just did. So that was like, oh, idea, how do I make it reality? Kind of go in and then you have to say, hey, I want this dashboard. But if you don't specify, it might just come up with something random and you're like, either doesn't match the vibe, the colors are off, it wasn't quite what I was looking for. So it is a little bit of a back and forth, and then really just going through and seeing what works, what doesn't, what needs to be changed. And you just say, like, for example, you would just say on page 2, this button, change it to this, or update this, and it's very granular. Like even this here, right? That little icon, take it to the report. Thing. So it's very specific.
And like the animations that are happening, it's like you didn't really code it yourself. You didn't put instructions. It's just kind of like by default, it assumed it's supposed to do that stuff.
Absolutely. Which is that really nice part is that, yes, you can customize everything, but it gives you a really nice foundation. It gives you the UI. It gives you all the different buttons. It usually has a uniformity in the design, which is really the coolest part. Because if you really like version 1, it's just a bunch of way less iterations to get to the ideal outcome. If by chance you don't like version 1, well, then it's like a pain because there's something wrong with the initial prompt. And now that's going down a bit of a different rabbit hole. But I love the UI and I love how it set it up. So it was super easy for me to just change the parts I needed to change. And then the outcome I was really happy with.
I mean, I'm going to get back to you, like why you even decided to go with ChatGPT for your initial prompt, like what made you think that way. But essentially what I was saying was like you would define requirements, then you would kind of like define every single user story, what exactly feature you want, and everything about it. And here you're kind of going off of just a prompt and letting it do its first draft. And then you kind of go from there. So you kind of get an idea of what it could look like. And then you're iterating over time. If you don't like your first draft, would you recommend like starting a new project altogether, or like just still sort of like give a prompt to like trying to course correct where you want to go?
I think it depends on the person, to be honest. Me, I'm like blank slate. Let's start all over again. But I did actually do both. There were times where I was like, you know what, we can make this better. Or maybe I liked it at one point, and through a bunch of prompts, I got to a point where I no longer liked it, or I hit an error and I couldn't undo the changes or whatever it might be. So in my head, I'm like, oh, it's easier just to start all over and use what I learned to try to make a better product. But there is a caveat there that if you start all over again, it can come up with something totally brand new. So it really comes down to you and the prompting. So I experienced that a bunch too, is then like, oh, it's good to know what I wanted last time and make it even better this time. No, the color is off. It's a totally different dashboard. It's a totally different interface. So I think that it really depends on how much you dislike the initial output. Okay. If you're like, this is so off and not what I thought, we'll try again. If you're like, you know what, I just need, the hero banner here and I need the drop downs to look like this and I want it to be this color scheme, that you can just do through continuous prompting in the same project.
Makes sense. I mean, these tools charge you per message, I believe. So maybe it's more advantageous to like, just start a new chat. But a pro tip, maybe, just maybe, you can take a screenshot of what you think you kind of like and then add that to your new chat and the prompt so you can make sure it can retain what you've already done and you kind of like. And maybe that's kind of like having a hybrid approach, if you will, to kind of like do it that way. Okay, and then I want to ask you, so initially you mentioned, that you just use ChatGPT to generate a prompt. What made you like just go to ChatGPT first versus just trying to like do that initial prompt within the tool where you could have been like, hey, I want to build this efficiency calculator?
I think it's because I probably thought that wasn't going to be good enough. I was like, there's no way that me just saying I want an efficiency calculator is going to do anything. So I think I was like, I'm going to go straight to the expert. AI knows what Lovable wants. I think that's probably what my thought process was okay. I'm sure it needs something more, and then AI was able to create it. But you're right, Kushan. I actually could have just put in, I want an efficiency calculator, have it have a dashboard, have these 7 functionalities, and it could have something very similar. But I learned that later.
Okay, very cool. And then, so, I mean, you said when we were talking those few weeks ago, you were obsessed for those 3-4 days. You just could not do anything else. And you were just like spending all your time and you were like, I'm running out of these credits we have. How can we get more? Because you're spending so much, like you're just chatting with it all day. What made you like want to do that obsessively? And then you want to show us like some other things that you're able to do. And then like, how did you like evolve? How did you get better within those 3-4 days? New things you learn. Too many questions here. Let's break it down. I can reiterate if needed. Also, we see a little cat in there. Nice.
Yes, I know. My kitty, she's around. A little work buddy. Yeah, well, I'll definitely start with what really drew me to it. I mean, again, when you shared that, I didn't even know the tools like this existed. So that initial excitement was just based off of the fact that I didn't even know you could do this. I was like, there's no way that I now have the power to create an application.
Hmm.
I think that over the last couple of years, I've definitely dreamt about that. I even looked into different app building tools, right? Those ones where you kind of have a template and then I don't know what I don't know,
There's a
none
whole
of
bunch of them.
there's
There's
so many. Right?
software. There's yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And then I actually had built an app. It didn't work, and I ran into a bunch of pain points, and I gave it up. But it was something that I was really, really interested in. So then I was like, wow, now I can think about some of those ideas I had back then, and now I actually have an opportunity where maybe the outcome's going to be a lot more positive than the initial time I tried it. So I was like, oh my gosh, if I have an idea, it can become reality. And the more prompts I put in and the more outputs I saw come out, I realized what was actually possible. So I started
Hmm.
playing with it. And I was like, wait, it can do this? Wait, it can do that? No way. And then I watched some YouTube videos and it kind of just had this, spiral effect. But the real part that I was really excited about was actually that now I had the power to solve my own problems. So one of the projects I built was around proposals. And I was like, oh, I hate creating proposals. And, there's really no software out there where I like the UI. Yeah, well,
Do you want to show us?
okay. The interface looked really simple, but I was like, hey, it works.
I mean, like you can restart from the part when you were saying like I got really excited about Proposal Builder.
So yeah, it was a bit of a spiral effect. And I actually got really excited that I could now solve certain problems I was having personally, like in my business. And I couldn't find a tool out there that was able to do that. So I was like, I'm just going to create one. I have this problem. Now I have this tool that can help me create it. And I have a big imagination. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I have so many opportunities now. And I started to look at what were the biggest pain points in my business at that time. And one of the most time consuming things that I was doing was actually creating proposals and then converting those proposals into SOWs and then taking those SOWs and turning them into project briefs. It's all the same information in a different document, but each of them has a really good use case. So I was like, now I can create a software or an app. I am so sorry. The kitty is just everywhere that can do all that for me. So this is the part that I was really excited about because I remember coming to you and being like, Kusheng, I have a solution to all of our problems because you showed me this tool. So this is really the one project that I became the most obsessed with because I saw the potential and I was like, I just got to prompt it. I just got to prompt it. And I ran into a bunch of issues, which I'll cover in just a second. But the beginning part was so exciting because I had an interface. I knew that it was possible. And now I was just going nuts with each of the prompts, hence why I went through so many credits. I don't know if I should say how many we had, but I went through them in like a week, 4 to 7 days.
I think what was like 500 credits we were able to get hold of, and you burned through like half of them in like 2 days.
Like a weekend. I know it was my weekend project. I remember it being Saturday morning and my boyfriend was making me breakfast and I was like, I'm just working on this thing. Just give me a couple more minutes. I'm going to get this.
You're like kind of like the hacker man just on your computer, like I'm coding stuff here.
I, I actually do remember going to Matt and being like, look at what I'm doing. This is really cool. It's really cool. It's coding. I'm not coding, but it's coding. So I'm coding. But yeah, this was the first version of the proposal. It really was that there was just, these are the placeholders that it generated. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool, right? I can open it up. I can look at it in the web form, or I can delete it and edit in all these different things. So I didn't play around with this too much, but I added in all of these. So should I just kind of open one up and show?
Yeah, let's see a demo. We're gonna keep this real and raw, so let's see a demo.
Awesome. Okay. So here is my idea was that I wanted our AI note taker to be run through, well, it already has a summary, but maybe run through another like custom GPT, extract certain information, pre-populate this lovable app or, the back end, and then have there be a front client facing web-based proposal. That was my idea. I was like, and this page that you guys see here is where I was like, we're going to have all of this information. And then when I click preview, it's going to generate a link that I share with the client. And now we have a beautiful proposal. And I was so excited about it. And essentially, I had the basic information. I had the executive summary, obviously information about our team, case studies, all the important stuff, right? And then I really spent a lot of time on this because I really wanted there to be an interactive component and to highlight the ROI. But the fact that, look, it's visual. a client could go in and see this data. And that to me was like mind blowing. It went on for like the different stages, and you could edit all of this. Like, let's say, you're like, oh, I wanted to blah, 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 add this. And then, now it's populated in the preview, which I thought was really cool. Implementation plan. Again, I also wanted there to be links. I was really excited about the fact that I can just embed anything. I can embed a video. I can embed, a workflow, a whimsical workflow. That's something that we do a lot. Or let's say the developer, had an implementation plan that they wrote up based off of, our chats with them. I could link it here and have it be, another place where the client could go to. Additional costs, again, everything. This is the back end. And then I also added this because I was like, oh, I'm going to need help creating these proposals, right? So, I could link the custom GPT. I could talk to a proposal gen assistant that I had created. I don't think these are working anymore, to be honest. I'm not sure where these are going to go. And then also I have some, SOPs in case I was passing this off to another member of the team.
So that is quite comprehensive. Like, you got so many features. So like, was it again the same approach? You used like ChatGPT for your prompt, and then they kind of gave you a whole bunch of stuff as a template, or you wanted these things in the first place, and then you took a different approach here?
A different approach here. The only time I used ChatGPT was in that initial prompt.
Okay.
And then I learned what was possible. And then I did some extra like research, whether it was talking to ChatGPT or watching some YouTube videos on the best way to sort of prompt it. And then after I had learned that, I knew what I needed to say to have certain outputs. I did run into issues because sometimes you think an output is going to be really easy and it can glitch, run into issues. But all of these features that you see here, I came up with these. I think that originally this backend was pretty generic, like the different sort of sections that might be in a proposal. And then I wanted to have, this here. I wanted the proposal to be shareable via a link. That was really important because I was like, it's so easy on the web. Same with, again, like pricing and this interactive part. All that was something that I really wanted and I thought would be really cool in the proposal. And I just prompted it and made sure that it got added in. Also, little things like, a button to remove something. You have to add that in. So, as much as it can create a bunch of stuff, it might miss little things like that, and you might need to add it in so that because of the thinking and having the final vision in mind as well.
So can we take a sneak peek at some of the prompts they used in this chat here? Or is that like asking someone's like browser history?
It is like asking someone's browser history. To be honest, like even look at this, like look at this error, whatever this is. But okay, let me see how
just like one or two, so we kind of get an idea of like what those prompts were if you're trying to refine something or like add a feature. Might be like useful for anyone here watching as well. Like how do you even like go about those prompts since you clearly have done multiple projects right now?
Absolutely. Like even look at this one as simple as enable the archive and delete buttons, but then walk me through Superbase setup requirement if needed. Because one thing is you can also, I found that I could just talk to it as if it was the ChatGPT as well, meaning that I could ask it questions or being like, walk me through this if this is required. So for this example, this is part of an issue that I was having where when things were deleted, they weren't getting deleted. So it got me thinking about that this data isn't being stored in a database. That's why I was saying is if we need to enable archiving and delete functionality, we might need to be storing this information in a database, but I know that isn't set up. And then it went on and I believe it walked me through how to connect it to the database.
Super helpful there.
Yes. And then also even ask questions. Are archive proposals linked to this table? And, I had a table that I had, this was in Superbase. I took a screenshot. I just kept asking it questions. Very delay because I clicked archive, and I was just having a conversation with it at some point. It looks like
using Lovable as ChatGPT. That's a flex you have once you have too many credits.
Yeah.
No wonder you're running out.
Yes, maybe. But yeah, I think this is when I started running into issues. I do think earlier on I probably would have just been saying, add this in, but I think I might have to scroll a bit more up to get to those. Yeah, add a button next to the preview button that allows for the proposal to be shared via link.
So it's like fairly conversational, just like, do this, do that, and you were able to kind of like do it that way. Okay, let's move on from, what you were able to do. What I want to talk about is like, correct me if I'm wrong here, like none of the projects that were built are technically live right now that we're using with our customers or whatnot. We got to a certain point, but then like none of them actually made it to production. What happened? Like, so you felt super encouraged, super empowered for the first few days. You were building a whole bunch of things, but we couldn't really make it live to actually make it functional and workable. So what happened there?
Oh, a lot happened. So as you're building this
Did you want a
out,
tissue or something?
yes, actually, I needed a tissue then and I need one now. As you're building, this idea out, you're going to run into errors. And the errors are just, the AI forgot a bracket here, or something isn't set up properly and it needs to go back into a different section of the code. The more prompts that you also give, the code just gets layered. And it asks that, again, goes right over my head, but it says that you need to like compress the code or put
Hmm.
it in sections. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but there's different little like best practices in how to deal with this. And if they're not being done, or you've asked it to do things, the same thing in multiple different ways, or change the same thing a bunch of different times, it's going to run into errors. And sometimes it can't fix those errors itself. And a big scary thing happens. So every time this happened to me, it was like heart wrenching because it can break. It can full on break. So if I gave it a prompt that it just couldn't fix the error, or maybe it went into some sort of like internal loop, I'm not really sure what goes on, but there's this big red box that pops up and it's just code gibberish. And what it essentially means is that it wasn't successful and the whole thing's kind of broken. But there's a built-in safety feature, which is undo. There's an undo button, which I relied on religiously because I would do things and errors would come up, they wouldn't get fixed, or I would put in a prompt and I didn't like the output, or I put it in the wrong section. You can just go into the version history and revert back to a version that you were happy with.
Hmm.
So that was a cycle that I got into, and that was part of that, obsessive weekend that I had because I knew what I wanted and I knew where the last point was, and then I would just experiment. Okay, add this, it didn't work. Okay, let's revert back. Add this. I kind of like this, but it wasn't. There was a lot of experimenting, and it's also draining because you want
It's
it to
like
have.
it's like playing a video game where like you're not able to beat a boss or like clear a round, so you kind of go back to your reset save point and you start again, try again, try again.
Exactly what happened. That's
Okay.
exactly what happened. And yeah, it was like obviously just like anything, if I don't because I don't understand the code, I don't know what the issues are. So I'm relying on the software, which has its limitations, which is why a lot of these projects didn't make it past the phase because honestly, we'd probably have to bring in somebody that does have coding experience
Hmm.
and take a look at it. And but the nice part is that it does integrate with GitHub. So if you do create a really amazing UI and you're really happy with 90% of it, well, you pass it off to, we have devs on our team and they know how to code, pass it off to them. And if it was a worthwhile project, they can like drive it home and take it to completion. So that's one of the limitations for sure. Like there's different projects that are simpler that, yeah, I think I was able to execute fully. It just was the use case there. Something as complex as this, though, it needs to have a bit of a complex backend where the data is going to get stored. There needs to be login functionality. There needs to be, again, when it's creating a unique URL that needs to be stored somewhere. Like
Hmm.
there's a lot of technical components that need to be built out, and you need a little bit of that extra technical knowledge that I didn't have.
But you were able to build out the login functionality, right? Because I remember asking you like, hey, can you like share your password for your account? Because I wanna see what's going on here.
Yes, that one wasn't too hard to figure out. You're right. The login was there, but then setting up the database so
Okay.
that it stored the right proposal to the right login with the right proposal URL attached as well. That
I
went
see.
right over my head, and I think I spent hours trying to figure it out, whether that was YouTube or the prompting, but then now you're also learning a second tool. And Superbase is the native integration that Lovable has for their backend database. And Superbase isn't like a simple little database. Like I think it can be quite complex and you can use it. Yeah, so now I have to learn a second tool and it was a little bit more technical. So I got a little frustrated.
So is that where the drop off point happened? And you're like, okay, party's over. I'm gonna find a new hobby now.
You know what? Actually, it still took a few more days before I really was like, I
Okay,
gave
okay.
it a solid try because I was so excited about this. I was like, it's going to look beautiful and our clients are going to be so happy because I'm like, the proposal is going to be amazing. It's going to be interactive. It's going to be highlighting all the things I wanted to highlight and it's going to be via a shareable link. Like how much easier can it get? And then it's going to take that information and it's going to convert it into an SOW and I was going to put that into, a sign software. Like I had the vision and I held onto that vision and I was going through the pain until I think it really was that, it broke one too many times or I gave it a bad prompt where it changed things. Sometimes it will actually misunderstand and it will change the entire functionality of,
Hmm.
a block of code. And I was like, no, I like the original code. It's this one part. And you run into issues like that.
I see.
But
Like, I mean, I
definitely,
imagine like if you have more time, right? I mean, right now you're juggling, I mean, spending pretty much all your time at your job at EA, but you're also managing the business side of things. But if you had more time, you think you'll be able to kind of go over the hump, YouTube videos, and then just learning that part. Like once you're here, like 80%, 90% there, it's kind of have the IKEA effect. You've already done so much. One, you cherish it. Two, there's an endowment effect where you're like, hey, I've already done this much. Can I like push that extra 10%? I mean, which is a really steep hill to climb right now, it seems. But you think you can, if you have more time, you can kind of get this actually across the finish line with vibe coding?
oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, I definitely think it just takes a little bit of time, patience, maybe having a good support system. And yeah, there's so many YouTube videos and so many resources out there. I think if you're passionate enough about a project, the tools are there. You just gotta, kind of go through the ups and downs of it for sure.
So if you're ever going to sabbatical, I'm gonna put you accountable for this. Well, like you have time now.
No,
Let's
you're
see if you
fine.
can commit to the word. It's public right now that if you have time, you can get these projects to completion 100%. It's on air.
Oh no. What have I agreed to?
That's settle. Okay, so you felt super encouraged, and then these are the limitations you're hitting. One thing I also want to mention that I saw this tweet where this one person got super excited. They built something, launched something, and 2 days later they were like, "Hey, why are people attacking me?" So they got into cyber attack just because, like, when you do use AI coding tools, security right now isn't like super well taken care of. So like some of their keys were exposed in the code, which someone else was able to access. So that's one thing to keep in note. Like if you want to trying to have a lot more sensitive information or data, maybe not the best just yet if you're completely not technical and you don't know what you're doing. But if you're technical, you have someone on your team who's technical, then you want to get to like, the 80% or something without bothering the team, which, I guess based on what Megan is saying here, that's probably a good start. But Megan, I want to like get your thoughts here. Like, what do you think, like for anyone who's non-technical, business majors, arts major, like anyone who's running a business, they're non-technical, they have ideas, big imagination. What would be a recommendation like when it comes to vibe coding for them?
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple thoughts on that. One, like have the dream, have the vision and try it out. Like I definitely think that the tools are here. If you have an idea and you want to start a business or you have an idea for a little mini SaaS, like go for it. First of all, just go for it and start experimenting. You do highlight a really good point about security though. So if you want to profit off of your idea or you want to store sensitive client data, you should be consulting an expert because that's where things get tricky legally. And well, obviously you're liable. So I think that if you want to, again, yeah, like Kushing said, take it to market, maybe consult someone, be really mindful about, if you do have that back end set up properly and making sure that the data is being stored securely and that you're using the right tools because you can integrate it with other tools. It doesn't probably have to be Supabase. And there's other tools outside of Lovable as well. So doing your research, and that's why you can take that code, make sure it's backed up into GitHub so that if you have a great idea, hold on to it and then you can repurpose it or utilize it or use it in a different way down the line and be really, really mindful about the different API keys that you're sharing into Lovable. So, I would just be really mindful in making sure that you're not giving it access to something that you.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Here we have some expert tips from Megan, from arts major to vibe coding, like your journey. I wanted to get you on here, for this new series, keep things raw, like how people actually doing things with AI. Yeah, thanks again, Megan, for coming on and sharing your thoughts. And hopefully anyone watching this, you learned something new, feel inspired, and take a crack at vibe coding. And maybe you're just a prompt away from your next big idea.